Welcome, welcome, welcome back. I know, I know, I know. It's been a long while since I posted a video. It's probably been 6 months since I've recorded one, to be perfectly honest. And if you're still subbed and following, I appreciate you guys. You're the real ones. I appreciate your patience, and we'll unpack all of that. Everything's fine. Everything's good. Day job got a little crazy. Had to kind of refocus. Had a lot of stuff going on at the house. Had to do some IRL stuff, and I honestly was getting a little burnt and just needed to focus on one thing. So, priorities, priorities. But here we are. So, how did we get here? How did we get to Gloomhaven? I was out and about yesterday and happened to come home and pull up YouTube to see what's going on in the world. And I found one of my favorite content creators had done an early access video of Frosthaven. And that really reignited something in me. And I thought about it as I was falling asleep last night. And I said, you know what? I'm going to post a starting campaign for Gloomhaven, which is the first game in the series, Frosthaven being the sequel that is coming out on Steam. I'm hoping it's coming to console because I'm playing on PlayStation. For a little bit more context, Gloomhaven as a whole, it is based off of a tabletop game, one of the I don't know if it's still the highest, but it was for many years the highest Kickstarter game, along with like Kingdom Death and some of those other tabletop games. I have about 220-ish hours on this digital version of Gloomhaven. I've not played it in at least, I want to say 6 or 7 or 8 months. However, I also played the tabletop version with an IRL friend group that we played through the whole campaign over the course of, I want to say it took us about a year and a half or 2 years. So this game has been out for quite a while as far as the tabletop version. And needless to say, I have hundreds of hours total, which does not necessarily make me an expert, but I do know some things. This game is dense. This first video will be setting up the campaign. We'll see how long and how meaty it gets, but it will likely be set up. And then, so if you're interested in just seeing gameplay, go to the next video. If you want to know what the heck's going on, then as far as like some of the background and getting the characters set up and what some of these mechanics are, stick around. I'm going to try to dip our toe in a little bit, and then we will unpack the many layers of this strategy game as we play through the campaign. So let's start a campaign, and then we'll get into it. So difficulty, I'm going to keep it at normal for the time being. As I said, it's been a while since I've played, and we'll see. If it gets too easy, then maybe we'll re-roll into harder difficulty. When it comes to ability enhancements, don't worry about that for right now. We're not going to see those for dozens and dozens and dozens of hours, so we don't worry about that option right now. What I would say is if you're new to the game and you're trying it for the first time or you're getting into it, use the updated version versus the original. The original version of the ability enhancements makes them permanent and you cannot sell them back. It's there, and the updated version, I have not played with this option available because we played kind of like the classic settings since we were used to the tabletop. Sorry, I left out that the group that I played the digital version with was the same group that I played the tabletop version with. So we already were very familiar with the rule set, and we decided to stick with kind of the traditional original rules. So in this one, we're gonna go. We'll get a little mixy. Okay. Um, can we do Woody Gang? No, I already used it. That's so funny. Uh, how about we do Witty's Gang? Ha 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 ha. There we go. That's the important distinction. All right, so let's hold here. So house rules. Um, I think for this playthrough, I'm going to use all the recommended settings because if you had never played the game before and you're just loading this up, I mean, like as I said, this game is so dense. I cannot believe that they have you make these decisions without knowing a ton of the other context. Granted, you probably would have played through the tutorial, which I'm not going to do, I don't think, because I don't remember how in depth the tutorial is. But there's no real advantage, I think, other than some of the explanations that I can provide you guys as we get into some of these scenarios. So, attack modifiers. Let's touch base on some of these things. These are important little concepts that we should talk about. So, attack modifiers. We're going to use the originals. So, an attack modifier is anytime you do an attack, anyone does an attack. In addition to the damage that might be on the card that is played, there is if you picture in your mind's eye that there is a deck of 20 cards in front of each hero, and then and there's one for all of the enemies, for like the monsters. Let's just, I think that's what they refer to them as in this game. And every time you do an attack, you draw off that deck, and that deck will have in it, to start, zeros plus zero, which does nothing, does not modify the damage at all. Plus one, plus two, minus two, and then there is a times two, which is your crit, or a times zero, which is also referred to as a null. I'm going to stick with those. The meta game with the attack modifier decks is that it is a little bit of card counting. If you see a -2 come out, if you see a -1 come out, then you know that your attacks that are going to happen after that are more likely to be higher damage, or at the very least not reduced damage, because you've already seen those negative cards. Something that this game does not do a good job of explaining. Let's see if they have it in the tips. No, they don't. Is that anytime a crit, a times two, or a times zero, a null, is drawn, then that attack modifier deck gets reshuffled. So it resets the deck, essentially. So just something to keep in mind. And as you level, there are additional modifiers that you give you more abilities. They also have what they call rolling modifiers. So they'll have something that'll have like a +1, but it'll have a little arrow on it. And what that means is that you keep drawing, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. I have seen a +1 roll um, into a null, into a whiff, and there's a lot of fun things that can happen with the modifier deck. So we'll get into that a little bit more once we get into combat. Advantage, disadvantage. Anyone who's tabletop should understand this rule, but for those who may not, advantage means that you would pull two modifiers, and you would pick the higher of the two, the better of the two. The disadvantage is that you would pull two and you use the worst of the two. So you essentially want to give your enemies disadvantage, and you want to have advantage. That's and those are key concepts only because they also get mixed in with some other terminologies that you'll hear. For example, strengthened. And strength, when a character gets strengthened, that means that their next attack has advantage. So it's very keyword driven, this game is. Let's keep going. Line of sight. Line of sight, we're going to use the center LOS line of sight, which is recommended. And what that basically means is that if you can draw a line without interruption with an obstacle or a wall or anything that might block a ranged attack, because if you're next to someone, then you automatically have line of sight because you're adjacent to them for like a melee attack. But if you are doing a ranged attack, then the center of your space has to be able to see the center of their space, which makes sense to me. Summons movement, we probably won't have to get into this too much in the beginning, but summons are any characters or any what am I looking for? Any creatures on the board, I guess, that you call into combat. Originally, if there was no enemy on the board, then they would not move. because movement for non-player characters, NPCs, that includes summons as well as enemies, is dictated by a set of rules that we will get into. We're going to use the variant because what that allows us to do is if we have, let's say we summon a skeleton that to fight on our side. If they do not cannot see an enemy, we still have the option to be able to move them to get them into position. And movement is positioning is just so crucial in this game, and you'll see why once we get in. And we'll also do the original variant, which will limit our gold a little bit, but I feel like spawned monsters dropping gold on death is kind of like a gold hack. Maybe it'd be fun to do one to try to really max out our gold potential, but I think we'll go with the recommended as I mentioned earlier, and let's move forward. Downloadable content I'm going to use because it's fun. I mean, we have 4 new mercenaries we could choose from, new enemies, new road events. We'll get into those, and we also have some solo scenarios, which I don't know how much those really impact us in the campaigns. I don't remember if we had those activated when I did my digital playthrough with my
Welcome to
group.
the
All
harsh
right, I'm gonna
lands
let
of
this play.
Gloomhaven,
It's kind of a
recruit.
generic hype video. Here's your sizzle
You
reel
think
for
you have what it
Gloomhaven.
takes to become a mercenary out there on the edge of the world? We are paid to venture into the darkest forests of the region and to step into ancient crypts with the unmistakable stench of death and rotting flesh. Lovely places to earn a name for yourself. Be ready to face cutthroats, undead, fearsome tribes, and dreadful demons from other realms. You didn't find yourself as a mercenary without knowing how to crack a few skulls, did you?
And there's your sizzle reel. So here's Gloomhaven itself. Gloomhaven is a city. It's and it will be kind of our hub, our that we will go back to after each scenario. Potentially, we'll get into that. So I'll read these little prompts here, and then maybe support with some additional context when I feel like it's necessary. But let's get into it. So before going into the harrowing wilderness surrounding Gloomhaven, you'll need at least 2 mercenaries in your party, brave or greedy enough to seek out adventures in exchange for gold. So our party panel is up there on the left hand side. You can see we have 4 slots, so it's a maximum of 4. So we're going to get over here. We're going to do a new mercenary. And we see because we activated the DLC that gave us 4 additional available starting classes. And this basically is just telling you that you can level up, that you should look at the ability cards and things like that. Pretty basic stuff, but let's just use the brute as the example here. So flavor text up top, 10 health, 13 ability cards, 0 starting perks. No one will have starting perks. Difficulty is low, and his role is kind of a melee damage tank. There's not tank is there. While the classic trio for RPGs does kind of apply here, there is some gray area. So just keep that in mind. But so what does any of this mean? Well, let's look at someone who is not as beefy. Let's look at like the Tinkerer. So he has 8 health, so 20% less than the brute, more cards. That's the offset. And he is a range support class. So you can see the strengths on the bottom. He's good at range. He's a decent healer. He's got a wide range of options as far as his abilities go, but he's also very fragile and he's weak in small teams, which I agree with all of that. And then the final, what is his final one? Has trouble opening tight jars. Right. So that one's always funny. It's a funny one. So the Brute, for example, is not a great conversationalist. Um, so we're gonna get into. We'll use the brute. I'm a brute fan as far as a starting character. I did not play him during my tabletop playthrough, and we're gonna call him Bruce. Bruce the Brute. Okay, personal quests. In a nutshell, when you create a new character off of a class, they are that you pull 2 random personal quest options, and these basically are for the retirement of the character. So the character is playing. There, oh, it says it right there. I'm sorry. I should just be reading this. Is a mercenary's sole reason for adventuring, and once that objective is complete, the mercenary will retire. And once they retire, that character is no longer playable. The important distinction for those who are like class, like if you find a class that you love, is that so if this brute retires, if Bruce retires, I can technically re-roll another brute. I can start another brute and call him whatever, Bruce Jr. or whatever I want to, and he can continue on. So you're not limited necessarily. Like the class doesn't go away, but the character does. So let's take a look at these. Oh, and it does show you at the bottom. Though farewells can be bitter, sometimes things have to move on to give give way to new horizons. So when you complete these personal quests, you typically unlock new mercenaries options, new character classes. So yes, we have 10. There are many, many more. And all you can see on here is see that little music thing underneath the little two music notes? That means that class has something to do with music, so maybe a bard. This one is like a skull looking thing with like tentacles, so I don't know. So this one, you have to have two other characters achieve their personal quests but that's all you have to do is you have to watch somebody else succeed, or you can go through this. So this looks like it's a personal quest line, for example, for this guy to complete 3 crypt scenarios, quote unquote, and then that's the first step, and then we don't even know what the second step is. But I like that. Let's do that. So Bruce has joined the party. Now you need a minimum of 2. We're gonna jump back over here. Maybe there we go. New mercenary. And let's look at some of these other ones. So scoundrel, melee damage, spellweaver, range damage, tinkerer, range support, Cragheart, damage and support. I'm gonna go up to the mine thief first. He's also melee damage. Look at how low his health is though, 6. Very fragile, but he has some crazy, and his difficulty must be high. Yeah, absolutely. Red guard, tanky, melee. Crowd control for the void warden. Hatchet is range damage, and demolitionist is also melee damage. So I am going to go Cragheart next. So Cragheart was going to serve as he's a damage class, but he also has some support options. So we're going to take him along with us, and we're going to call him. We did Bruce the Brute, and we're going to do Craig the Cragheart. Okay, I know, super clever. All right. Experience of party members becoming exhausted 15 times, which means they have to basically they get knocked out in the scenario, and we'll get into some of the mechanics of what that means a little bit further once we get into the game itself. But that means that he needs to watch his party members essentially die, quote unquote, within the scenario 15 times, which is a lot. I think we're going to go merchant class here, and we'll look at that. But you can see the icons up top. So he has to own 2 head items, 2 chest items, 2 leg items, 3 weapon items, or yes, hand items, and 4 items. So we're going to do this one. So Craig the Cragheart is a greedy guy. So they want you to gear up, but I'm not going to do that. Oh, they're going to make me? I think they're going to make me. All right, hold on. Okay. They're telling us about the mercenary, hold on. We're going to tell us about the merchant shop, but I want to add one more mercenary. I like playing with 3. This game, the scenarios, which are the missions that you run, the actual combat, scale not only with the difficulty of the enemies that you fight. So it's not just like more like bullet sponge. It's not just more HP. Well, I mean, it's kind of strange. Sorry, let me think about a better way to say this. The number of enemies and the types of enemies. There's two primary types of every enemy, which is there's like a normal enemy and there's an elite version, which the elite version will have more HP, do more damage, be more of a pain, and cause more pain. The the more characters you have, the more elites that you're going to have, and the more normal enemies you're going to have. The whole thing. So 2 characters, you're going to have the least amount of enemies on the board. 4 characters, you're going to have the most and the most difficult. 3, I feel like, is a nice balance because it allows us to get another character onto the battlefield, which is going to be the Spell Weaver. I, I debated on this, but I love this character. Spellweaver was my first Gloomhaven character that I rolled, and I played her for a very long time. I think I was the last character to retire out of the first round, and I might have even had another person I was playing with retire 2 characters before I retired her. So she can be tricky. Her difficulty is high. However, I've played her, so I'm comfortable with her, and I feel like I can explain a little bit better what the how to play her. I guess than somebody who's never seen her before because she has some tricky cards. But essentially, she's a mage. I'm sorry that you guys can't see that. They really want me to return to the world map. I don't know why they're forcing my hand here. But can we come up with a name here? A spell. I mean, I didn't. I didn't. I'm not very good at this. What do we call her? Um, we're gonna call her Sigourney. Get it? Sigourney. Sigourney. Is it EY? Is it just Y? We'll go with EY. It's fantasy. Okay, kill 20 elite monsters in the base game. Done. I will use her to focus on that. Okay, so she has joined. Now, let's go to the merchant. We mentioned this earlier a little bit that because Craig has to collect a bunch of items. Let's read. Okay, they want us to do the city encounters, but I don't want to do that yet. So and then okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves, guys. We're because I'm trying to skip. I wanted to add another character to my party. So items are character specific. So if you buy a head item for Bruce, only Bruce can use it. And you can sell items back. I believe it's for half the value. We have 30 starting gold on each one of our characters, and there are a limited number of items in the shop. So there are only 2 iron helmets, just as an example. So once those 2 are purchased, no one else can get that item. It'll say 0 of 2 available. You have 1 body item that you can wear, 2 hand items or 1 2-handed item. Leg items are legs or boots. They combine those into one category, unlike a lot of other RPGs. So you'll see items in the boots or the legs items that are like the example. I don't have any leg items at this point. Technically, I have. I guess I have boot items, but they are in the leg category. And then we have all of our one-handed and two-handed items, and we have a bunch of chest items, and then we have just small items. So small items are normally consumables. You can see this here. For example, it says on the minor power potion that during your attack, you gain +1 attack to your entire attack action. This game is very keyword driven. So what that means is if you have an attack that has multiple attacks, say let's say it's a attack for 1 and an attack for 2 or something like that on this in the same action box, that means that I would actually attack for 2 and then attack for 3. So there's like a lot of nuance to this strategy game. Like I said, very dense. The other thing to keep in mind on items as you look at them, on the bottom of this little descriptor box, you'll see a white box, which is supposed to indicate a card, and then you'll see a red X. And what that means is that is a burn, meaning it will go away for the rest of that scenario, not forever, just for the rest of that particular scenario. So it's a one-time use per mission per scenario, whatever you want to. I think they're called scenarios. I'm going to try to use the terminology the game uses. Okay, so for Bruce, he is a front line. He is a tank. Um, I really don't want to spend all 30 gold on one item. So I think what I might do is I'm going to get the leather armor. You'll also see um, this this hide armor, just as an example. So let's look at this. This says during your turn, gain shield 1 for the rest of the round, which is going to block 1 damage of an incoming attack. Um, and to do that, if you see the little box on the bottom, it's got a white box and it turns. Tapping it, for those MTG fans out there, you basically get to use that item, and it goes from being upright to laying on its side on the tabletop version. And what that means is that it cannot be used again until your character long rests, and which is something that we'll get into. But basically, it's you basically have to skip your turn, but there's other functionality behind it. So it's not a one time for the entire scenario, but it is kind of a one time for now, basically. So, and it's for the rest of the round. So that's kind of fun too. A round is one playthrough for one cycle of card plays for every character, or every character on the board, and monsters included. Um, so this one on the hide armor says for the next 2 sources of damage from attacks targeting you, you gain +1 shield. So this one is reactive, meaning that it's when an attack happens, you get to make that choice. And you get to do it twice. You'll see there's a little infinity symbol, and then there's 2 icons, which means that you'll gain that +1 shield for that attack, and then after the second one happens, then it taps, and then you have to rest to get it back. The part that I wanted to mention though was that you can see it says add -1, and there's 2 dots underneath that. What that means is that when you take this item, it will add 2 -1 modifiers into your deck. So your normal array of cards you choose from, you now have more negatives in, and that's not ideal. So I'm thinking about going here, but then and then this heater shield has, if you look at it, when damaged by an attack, you get 1 shield for the attack. It's very similar to the chain armor and the other. So you can see how you can kind of balance yourself a little bit here. So I think that for the sake of this, I'm going to buy this iron helmet first, which is when I get attacked, if a monster crits against me, essentially it negates the crit and it makes it a +0 instead. So if they are attacking me for, let's say, 2 damage, it would normally, if it critted, it would go to 4, but instead it's going to stay at 2. So it's kind of a quality of life kind of thing, and it's only 10. And now you can see here that it says 5 gold on the side, and that's because I could sell it back for 5 gold. Let's see here. What would make sense for me to do? I love movement. Movement is real big in this game. I mean, positioning is so key. I think I might go with winged shoes, which allows me to have jump, which allows me to go over objects and obstacles, and enemies to get to the other side of them. And I feel like that might be a good investment for him. These are probably not the items that they recommend you take, but they're the items I'm taking regardless. Okay, Craig. Craig is our guy who needs to collect. He needs to collect 2 of everything, and of all the things for his personal quest. Let's go maybe Boots of Striding for him. Again, I'm real big on movement. I know it's 20 gold, but dang, it's nice. And then maybe, do I give him the iron? No, you know what? I think I'm going to give him the stamina potion here. which allows you to pull cards back out of your discard, which is nice. And then finally, Sigourney. Sigourney, what are we doing here? Sigourney, I'm gonna do something that is probably a little unhinged, but I'm gonna go with the Eagle Eye goggles because I love this item when I was playing this character on the tabletop version. So we get advantage, and if you remember, that means we get to pull two cards and take the higher one. So it's a tap, so I can get it back. It's such a great. She's essentially Sigourney's kind of like a glass cannon, kind of your typical glass cannon mage, but that is what she's taking. Now we're back, so you can see we have a city encounter, we have a city quest, and then we also have a world quest. So let's get into the city. I think we have to get into the. Hold on. Can we? Yeah, we got to go into here. Okay. So narration's off. I see that. I couldn't remember if they had one or not. So these are randomized quests or encounters that happen. You have city ones and you have road events. And road events happen on your way out of town to go to your next mission. And they are unavoidable. They happen every time. I say that with a grain of salt, but we'll get into this. And then the city encounters are happen every time you come back from a mission before you can go back out again. So let's talk about what's going on here. On a trip to the new market, you see a curious sea chart prominently displayed in a Valroth merchant's stall. So this is a very fleshed out world. So there's you're not just it's not just like orcs and elves. I mean, there are elves and there are orcish creatures, but I'm just saying like there's a level of world building that they've done here that once again is not doesn't give you a whole lot of context, but you'll learn as you play, right? Ah, I see this interests you, he says while holding it up, taking great care not to damage it. I've been told this map will lead you to a location of untold riches, wondrous beyond anything you've seen before. The Valroth gestures grandly with his free hand, and the smile grows wide. How can you say no to this? Just make me an offer. So we can try to bargain for it. I think we want to, but I don't have any gold. Okay, yeah. So what likely happened in that was that because we did not have any gold, it went back into the randomized pile basically, and we'll see it again. Most events, if they do not resolve, they will go back into the deck until you can resolve them in some way, and the decisions are not always easy. So, but we'll see more as we go. So we have a city event or city quest, then we have a world quest. This is so you see the homage to the tabletop game. This is what the map looks like, and you can see we have a couple of things we can do here. So we have a mission in town right here that I think we can go do, right? Yep, we can. And it tells you what your objective is. We have to kill all the enemies in the room. And if we go out, let's see if I can select this one. Same thing. And you can see the icons below that there is a treasure chest, and then I don't know what the glass is. I'll be honest. Maybe I'm not sure what that is. Maybe I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that is. Where are we sitting on time here? We're 33 minutes in. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to call this as like this is like the preamble. We'll call this like the preamble to the campaign. On that note, I do want to mention just a couple more things before I forget that we will need to get into on the next episode. Jeez, Witty, think about what you're saying. All right, so let's look at the Brute's cards here. So it says the mercenaries will unlock new and more powerful ability cards each time they level up. Look for synergies between ability cards and adapt your hand depending on the enemies you'll be facing. So every time you go into a scenario, you can actually change your deck. because you have a pool of cards that you can pull from, but you have a limit on how many you can bring within to the scenario. Same thing with equipment. So if you have two headpieces, you can only wear one, but you can own two, obviously, because Craig needs to own them all. So let's look at this as an example. This is again part of the meaty part. I know I said I was leaving, but we were ending, but I just want to make sure that we touch base on this a little bit before we get into the scenarios, because scenarios can go long sometimes. So there's a lot of information here. I see. I can hear. If you haven't played this game, I can smell your brain going into overdrive. You're gonna burn out your processor. But here's the things to keep in mind. Every card has a top action and a bottom action, and the action is what's happening in the box itself. So in this example, on the trample card, you see it says attack 3, pierce 2. That is an action. Then on the below that to the left, you'll see it has a little 2 with a sword, and then on the bottom we have a move 4, which is and it also gives you jump, which means you can hop over everybody. And then this card's very unique in that after you do that, you then do an attack 2 on every enemy that you hopped over. So imagine like it's a little Mario Brothers, right? It's a little like boom, boom, boom. Um, the 2 below that says target all enemies move through. The 2 with the little like kind of sun shaped thing, those are experience points. That's how you level. You can see it on the icon again below the Bruce. It says level 1 below Bruce, and it says XP 045. So this will get you 2 XP towards your 45 to level 2. And then above that action, you'll see in the top right it says it has a little boot and it has a 2. The little sword with the 2 and the little boot with the 2 that are kind of in the same line with that number 72 are what we call basic actions. So no matter what you, no matter what, no matter what, you can always use the top action of a card to attack something for 2 melee damage, or in the bottom you can use the basic action just to move 2. Why the heck would you do that when you have all these cool abilities? I'm glad you asked. On the bottom ability, bottom action of this card, the bottom right hand corner, you see a little card and it looks like it's on fire. And that's appropriate because this is what we call burn. And what that means is it's very similar to the when we looked at the potion in the shop earlier at the merchant. If you use this bottom action, which is a very powerful action, as we talked about, you get to Goomba Stomp all these guys. That means that card is no longer available for the rest of the scenario. Well, why does that matter, Witty? Like, I mean, okay, you get to use it once. I mean, like, we're gonna get it back. That's fine. However, if your character runs out of cards during the scenario, they are exhausted. So, even though you have a health pool, if you imagine your deck as your energy level, for example, you have to keep your energy level up. And as you use cards, they will go into your discard. How do you get them back? Glad you asked. You can either long rest or you can short rest, and we'll get into the details of those. But basically, if you rest on a turn, then you get all of your cards back from your discard -1. So you can see it becomes kind of what do they call those? Come on, Whitty. It's been a long time since you've been on the microphone. You can't be dropping the ball like this. A war of attrition. Your energy level is slowly going down, slowly going down. So if you burn this card, then it means that you will not have you can't get it back out of your discard because it goes into a separate pile. It's out of the scenario. It's exiled. It's gone for until that scenario ends. So there's situational choices. So I don't say I don't want to do that, but I still want to use the card. I still want to, I'd like to use it. Well, then you can use your basic action as a move 2 on the bottom there. The last thing I want to mention on this, I know this is a ton of information, is that there are numbers associated with all these cards. I mentioned the 72 earlier. What the heck is that? So when beginning of every turn, which we'll see in the next episode, you select two cards. The first card you select, the number that's on it is your initiative. The lower the initiative, the faster you're going to go in turn order. In this scenario, in this situation, I'm playing all three characters, so I'm aware of what the other two characters might be doing. In the tabletop version or in the multiplayer version, when you're playing with other players, you don't see what they select until everyone's cards are revealed at the same time. So you don't know. So that's kind of the fog of war, of you don't know what they're going to do. You can't. There's not table talk is not supposed to be integrated into this. It's supposed to be, that's the creative portion where I might select two cards, and then I find out that Craig, being played by somebody else, is kills the guy faster than I can even get the enemy that I was going to target. Well, now what do I do? So it's supposed to be able to give you some options, because when you select the two cards at the beginning of every turn, you are going to be held to using the top action of one card and the bottom action of another card. And that could be the actual action, or it could be the basic action. So a move two, attack two, or whatever's printed on the card itself. And you don't need to make the choice of which top action you want to use or which bottom action you want to use or from which card until it's your turn, because the field of battle will change because enemies also draw initiative. So they all of a sudden you might have a plan, and then of like what you're going to do in your head, and your teammates are fine, they don't mess it up, but the enemy that you're going to attack puts up a massive amounts of shield and defense and all this stuff, and you go like, my attack's not even going to do anything, so why would I do that? So you have to kind of roll with the punches and modify what you're going to do. Last thing I'll say on these cards, I mentioned earlier, you are limited by the number that you're allowed to bring in, and that's per class. Each class has their own number of cards they're allowed to bring, but you do have more. So, for example, sorry, let me get hold on, I gotta get back over here. So there are 3 additional cards right now, these 3 that are not in my deck. But if I say I want to add skewer, I can't, right? It says and the red up top is flashing. But let's say I want to let's say we take out man, I love his starting deck. I was just trying to think of something I wanted to take out. Let's take out grab and go, just for this example. I'm not gonna probably do that, but and then now we can add it back in again. See, so there's a lot to think about here, and so I'm going to probably do all my card selection offline before I record the next episode, but I'll do this for every character, and you can see, I'm sorry, you'll see the there's a lot to consider. But I'll do my best to get into this. I will arrange my decks here, and then I will probably sit back down in a little bit and run through this first scenario. And please, please, please feel free to ask questions, comment, correct me. Like I said, I have hundreds of hours of playing to draw from, but I'm not going to get everything right. I promise you. But I will do my best to. And if you have any questions, if you're interested in the game, if you're playing the game, let me know. Let me know what characters you like. This is my starting 3. We'll see where we go from here. And I appreciate you guys joining me again. I appreciate your patience in my little sabbatical that I had. I will see how this goes, and hopefully we'll get through a whole playthrough of this in the next. Well, we'll see how long it takes us. I guess I don't want to commit to anything because who knows how long it's going to take. There are like 100 scenarios, over 100 scenarios, I think total with the expansion, but we'll see what happens. Guys, I hope you have a great day. Thanks for being here. Take care of yourselves.